Luigi Mangione is a 26-year-old American who is accused of assassinating United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson on December 9, 2024 in New York City. He justified the assassination as a protest against systemic corruption and healthcare commodification. The crime scene revealed bullet casings marked with deny, defend, and depose, referencing tactics insurance companies use to reject claims and possibly symbolizing a revolt against corrupt authority figures. Under Thompson's leadership, United Healthcare reportedly denied 33% of claims, with decisions increasingly driven by AI algorithms. Critics likened the system to a dystopian tech monarchy. Authorities discovered a handwritten manifesto in Mangione's possession, expressing anti-corporate sentiments and denouncing the US healthcare system, condemned insurance companies calling them parasites, and also left a backpack filled with monopoly money, emphasizing his critique of profit-driven healthcare. In a Goodreads review that January, Luigi offered his perspective on industrial society and its future, also known as the Unabomber Manifesto. Ted Kaczynski was a lone bomber who terrorized the US for nearly 20 years, planting bombs that ended the life of 3 Americans and injured many more before his capture in 1996. A former mathematics professor turned anti-technology activist, Kaczynski's infamous manifesto critiques industrialization and its impact on human freedom and the environment. Natalie Lynn Rupnow was a radical feminist who carried out a mass shooting at Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin. A document purported to be her manifesto, though not yet officially confirmed, advocated for exterminating men and black people, declaring a war against humanity, and a real revolution while also expressing disdain for religious indoctrination. She followed the now-deleted Twitter account RadFemHitler, a trans-exclusionary radical feminist, an ideology that basically states that gender is a social construct created to oppress women, but it often emphasizes biological determinism by asserting that only individuals assigned female at birth can be considered real women. This ideology excludes transgender women and dismisses their experiences, framing them as threats to women's rights and spaces. Her ideology combined misandry and critiques of patriarchal structures with influences from violent figures, reflecting themes of alienation and revenge. Rupnow's alleged social media presence also showed signs of alienation, and a photo of her wearing a KMFDM t-shirt, similar to one worn by Columbine shooter Eric Harris, circulated online. Anders Behring Breivik is a Norwegian far-right extremist who carried out the 2011 Norway attacks, which included a bombing in Oslo and a mass shooting on Utoya Island, ending the lives of 77 people. On the same day, he published a 1,500-page manifesto titled 2083, a European Declaration of Independence, outlining his anti-Islamic, anti-multicultural ideology, justifying his actions, and providing detailed instructions for lone wolf terrorism. Breivik reframed the concept of race war into a cultural war, arguing that his struggle was against cultural Marxism and the perceived Islamization of Europe. He advocated for the deportation of Muslims from Europe and sought to establish a monocultural Christian society. The Red Army faction, also known as the Baader-Meinhof Group, emerged in West Germany in 1970, believing that the post-war German state retained fascist elements. They targeted US military facilities, German government institutions, and business leaders. Their campaign lasted until 1998, resulting in 34 deaths. The group's ideology combined anti-imperialism, anti-capitalism, and urban guerrilla warfare theory. The Red Army faction's manifestos served as a call to arms for urban guerrilla warfare, advocating armed struggle and a Marxist-Leninist-inspired revolution against capitalist and imperialist forces. Pekka Erik Ovinen, the perpetrator of the Jokela school shooting in Finland in 2007, held a complex and disturbing ideology characterized by nihilism, social Darwinism, and a profound disdain for humanity. His beliefs were articulated in a manifesto titled Natural Selectors Manifesto, where he justified his violent actions as a necessary culling of the weak-minded masses of society. Ovinen uploaded a package of 21 media files to the internet, which included photos of himself, his firearm, Jokela High School, an undisclosed music file, and 3 documents in Finnish and English. The manifesto combined ideas from his favorite socially critical thinkers, such as Plato and Friedrich Nietzsche, with references to the Unabomber Manifesto. James Earl Ray assassinated Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968 and left behind writings that revealed his racist ideology and opposition to the civil rights movement. His ideology was characterized by deep-seated racism, a desire for personal recognition through violent means, and psychological struggles that shaped his worldview. His actions were driven by a combination of these factors, leading him to assassinate Martin Luther King Jr., an act he believed would serve his ideological goals, but ultimately resulted in widespread condemnation and tragedy. In 2019, Brenton Tarrant ended the life of 51 people in mass shootings at 2 New Zealand mosques. His manifesto promoted white nationalist and anti-immigrant views. The first time a far-right terror attack was live-streamed. He had also published the manifesto online beforehand. Facebook reportedly removed 1.5 million videos of the attack in the first 24 hours, showing how terrorism can be used as a form of communication. Mark David Chapman carried the Catcher in the Rye as his manifesto during his assassination of John Lennon in 1980. Chapman developed a deep attachment to J.D. Salinger's novel. He claimed the book encapsulated his rejection of phoniness and materialism, identifying with its protagonist, Holden Caulfield. He believed that his actions mirrored Caulfield's desire to protect innocence from perceived corruption. This literary connection provided Chapman with a framework to rationalize his violent intentions, as he saw himself as a moral guardian acting against societal phonies like Lenin. The Earth Liberation Front, operating as a decentralized group of environmental activists, conducted numerous acts of property destruction between 1992 and 2002, causing an estimated $100 million in damages. Unlike other eco-activist groups, ELF explicitly targeted economic sabotage, attacking car dealerships, logging companies, and housing developments they deemed environmentally harmful. Their manifesto, Setting Fires with Electrical Timers, outlined their methodology of targeting symbols of urban sprawl and environmental destruction. The group justified their actions through the concept of ecological sabotage, arguing that property destruction was necessary to prevent greater environmental harm. Their most notable action was the 1998 Vail Resort arson in Colorado, causing $12 million in damages to protest ski resort expansion into lynx habitat. The Weather Underground Organization, a radical left-wing group that engaged in bombings during the late 1960s and early 1970s. Their actions were ideologically driven by opposition to the Vietnam War and systemic racism. The group had claimed credit for 25 bombings, including the U.S. Capitol, the Pentagon, the California Attorney General's office, and a New York City police station. Originally known as the Weathermen, the group formed as a faction within the National Leadership of Students for a Democratic Society. Its name came from a Bob Dylan lyric, "You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows," which also titled a 1969 position paper to dismantle U.S. imperialism and build a classless communist world. Just Stop Oil is an activist group focused on halting fossil fuel production in the UK through non-violent civil resistance. Their methods aim to draw attention to the urgent need for climate action while advocating for a transition to sustainable energy practices. The group's methods have garnered both attention and controversy. Just Stop Oil has engaged in high-profile protests, including blocking major roads and disrupting traffic, targeting cultural institutions, such as spray painting artworks and halting performances, and conducting blockades at oil terminals to disrupt fuel distribution. Osama bin Laden, leader of Al-Qaeda, orchestrated numerous attacks culminating in the September 11, 2001 attacks, which ended the lives of 2,977 people and left a generational impact. He published Letter to the American People in 2002, explaining his organization's motivations and demands. The letter combined religious justification with political grievances. Bin Laden framed his actions as defensive warfare against what he perceived as Western aggression against Muslim lands and values, using selective religious interpretation to justify attacks on civilians. Aum Shinrikyo, led by Shoko Asahara, executed the deadly 1995 Tokyo subway sarin attack, ending the lives of 13 people and injuring thousands. Their ideology, detailed in Asahara's book, Declaring Myself the Christ, merged apocalyptic Buddhism, Hindu traditions, and Christian end-times prophecies. The group attracted highly educated members, including scientists who helped develop chemical weapons. Their manifesto, The Truth of the Sacred Word, justified violence as necessary to initiate Armageddon, which they believed would cleanse the world. The group is particularly significant for being the first non-state actor to use weapons of mass destruction in a terrorist attack. Their technical sophistication, combined with apocalyptic ideology, represented a new form of religious terrorism that influenced later groups. The CSA was a Christian identity survivalist group active in the 1970s and 1980s in Arkansas. Led by James Ellison, they transformed from a religious commune into a paramilitary organization preparing for an imminent apocalyptic race war. Their ideological text, Prepare War, combined elements of Christian identity theology with detailed plans for terrorist attacks and guerrilla warfare. The group conducted weapons training, stockpiled supplies, and planned attacks on infrastructure and minority communities. The CSA's manifesto was particularly influential because it combined practical survivalist information with ideological justification. Their compound included a city of refuge, designed to survive the expected collapse of society. These are a few crimes driven by ideology, and I can explore more in another video. Understanding these cases helps us recognize warning signs and prevent future incidents. While ideology can provide the framework for violence, it's usually a combination of personal, social, and psychological factors that lead to action. If you have any thoughts about this, please feel free to drop a comment below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.